Immediately after I arrived, he took me for a long walk in the chaparral. He seemed to have been waiting for me. We walked for hours. He did not collect or show me any plants. He did, however, teach me an appropriate way of walking. He said I had to curl my fingers gently as I walked so that I would keep my attention on the trail and the surroundings. He claimed that my ordinary way of walking was debilitating and that one should never carry anything in one's hands. If things had to be carried, one should use a knapsack or a shoulder bag. His idea was that forcing the hands into a specific position, one was capable of greater stamina and awareness. I saw no point in arguing and curled my fingers. My awareness was in no way different, nor was my stamina. He said that I had not felt the benefits of the right way of walking because I was young and strong, and my body did not notice anything because it was a bit stupid. He laughed. I was not in a laughing mood, and that seemed to amuse him even more. He corrected his previous statement, saying that my body was not really stupid, but somehow dormant. At that moment, an enormous crow flew right over us, cawing. That startled me, and I began to laugh. But to my utter amazement, he shook my arm vigorously and hushed me up. He had a most serious expression. That was not a joke, he said severely, as if I knew what he was talking about. What you saw was not just a crow, he exclaimed. But I saw it, and it was a crow, I insisted. You saw nothing, you fool, he said in a gruff voice. His rudeness was uncalled for. I told him I didn't like to make people angry, and perhaps it'd be better if I left, since he did not seem to be in a mood to have company. He laughed uproariously as if I was a clown. My annoyance and embarrassment grew in proportion. You're very violent, he commented casually. You're taking yourself too seriously. Crows flying or cawing are never an agreement. That was an omen. An omen of what? A very important indication about you, he replied cryptically. At that instant, the wind blew a dry branch of bush to our feet. That was an agreement. He looked at me with shining eyes and broke into a belly laugh. I had the feeling he was teasing me by making up the rules of this strange game as we went along. It was all right for him to laugh, but not for me. My annoyance mushroomed again, and I told him what I thought of him. He was not cross or offended at all. He laughed, and his laughter caused me more anguish and frustration. I thought he was deliberately humiliating me. I decided then and there that I had had enough of field work. I stood up and said I wanted to start walking back to the house because I had to leave Los Angeles. Sit down, he said imperatively. You get peeved like an old lady. You cannot leave now because we're not through yet. I hated him. I thought he was a contemptuous man. He then recapitulated all he had told me on the topic of learning about plants. He stressed emphatically that if I really wanted to learn, I had to remodel most of my behavior. You take yourself too seriously, he said slowly. You are too damned important in your own mind. That must be changed. You are so important that you feel justified to be annoyed with everything. You're so important that you can afford to leave if things don't go your way. I suppose you think that shows you have character. That's nonsense. You're weak and conceited. He pointed out that in the course of my life I had not ever finished anything because of that disproportionate importance I attached to myself. Self-importance is another thing that must be dropped, just like personal history, he said in a dramatic tone. Self-importance is a universal problem in modern society. For example, most people drive alone in cars and feel important. With a little eco-planning, they could walk, cycle, or use public transport, like people did during the war. Many think that people are the ultimate force in the world and talk of equality, civil liberties, and all that. They think they can fly wherever they want, whenever they want, regardless of the weather. Indeed, the catalogue of human arrogance and folly is endless. People forget that it is always nature that has the last word. The fact of the matter is that the most fundamental scientific observation anyone can make is that the world is bigger than people. We talk of nature, but it was by studying the laws of nature and applying them that brought about the Industrial Revolution to create our modern habitat. Whenever they plan anything, Muslims always say God willing, and remind themselves that the world is bigger than people than they are 5 times a day. In Britain, when I was a boy during the war, people were also more humble and added all being well whenever they made plans. All being well, I'll make another video about the teachings of Don Juan in a week or 2, but I'm not a great one for talking if no one's listening. And neither of my last 2 videos has received more than 150 visits.